Of all of the songs around, sometimes the old ones, I think, are interesting, especially when they're redone in a different manner. Many of you, I'm sure, will remember this tune. It's a very old song. I Only Have Eyes for You. And to do it, here are the Flamingos.
My love must be a kind of blind love. I can't see anyone but you. Shabam, 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 shabam. Are the stars out tonight? I don't know if it's cloudy or bright. I only have eyes
Hi ladies, today's video is part 4 of the documentary Examining the 1950s Housewife. In this video, we will be looking at the 1950s. World War II. World War II took place 2 decades after World War I. It spanned from the 3rd of September 1939 to September the 2nd, 1945. It is noted as the deadliest war in history, with around 85 million fatalities as a result and unprecedented damage to property and land globally. In World War II, there were 384,000 British soldiers killed in combat, but a higher civilian death toll at 70,000 as opposed to 2,000 in World War I, largely due to the German bombing raids during the Blitz. 40,000 civilians died in the 7-month period between September 1940 and May 1941, almost half of them in London. America's involvement is marked by one of the key events, the surprise attack on the American naval base Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. This occurred on the morning of the 7th of December 1941 by the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service. This attack eventually led to a declaration of war against Japan and then Germany and Italy after they initially declared war with the US. American men and women of varying ages and nationalities served in the war. The United States' involvement and victory in the war shaped how the nation operated and established the nation as a military and economic social leader. The rest of the video will be an oral history of the 1950s. I had a conversation with my mummy, and as she happily shared her memories from the decade, I was able to take some notes. My mother was born in 1950 in the sunny and beautiful island of Jamaica. She arrived in England in 1954. During the 1950s, she lived in South London, specifically Brixton, Peckham, then Battersea. It is important to note that her story is shared from a West Indian working class perspective. The impact of World War II. There were still a lot of bomb sites around and the rubble. Non-constructive prefab bungalows were made of plasterboard. This is why a lot of West Indians were invited over to build up the country after the war. They were healthcare professionals and worked on trains, railways, and building construction. A ration book would supply you with basic groceries. It was for milk, butter, and cheese. Cost of living. Bus fare was very cheap, equal to 5 pence. You could buy a bag of shopping for £1. A loaf of bread was equal to a shilling, which was equal to 5 pence. The milkman would drop milk, bread and cheese at your door if you wanted. Nobody would steal deliveries. Culture. Both working class people had to work for their living in spite of race. They had to work very hard. Life was peaceful, safe, and people had more respect for one another. Everything was written by hand. People enjoyed writing letters. There was a high standard of writing. Fish and chips were wrapped in newspaper. Fashion was very neat and sedate. British people dressed in dark colours, black, dark brown, and the men wore hats. More colourful clothes came in the 60s with the influence of West Indians. Children would play in the playground, common, and parks. Television was black and white. I watched shows like I Love Lucy, Blue Peter, Bill and Ben the Flower Pot Men, and Newsreel. Reggae was underground and people had house parties as they weren't accepted into the white society. The popular artists ranged from Nat King Cole, Frank Sinatra, and Elvis. The music of the time were the blues, jazz, and blue beat. Family life and community. Children respected their elders and were generally respectful in society. Younger people would give up their seats for the elderly people. Black women were always working. They didn't have the means to stay home and raise the children. Both partners had to work. I was the only black child in my class and I felt very lonely. English people had tin baths in their home or would wash in the kitchen sink. Many working class homes or cheaper homes did not have bathrooms. When West Indians bought homes, they added bathrooms. People used sunlight soap to hand wash their clothes. West Indians painted their homes bright colors. They brought color into society with their dress. In those days, it seemed like people moved frequently, as many Caribbean people were renting and many had to share rooms, as it was difficult to get accommodation due to racism. Doorman salesmen would sell bedspreads and bed linen, silk, satin, and bright colors. They mainly targeted Caribbean people. Lastly, I wanted to know from my mum. I asked her, "How do you view the 1950s housewife?" She answered, "I would say they were very hardworking, very domesticated. They had a very basic iron and had to wash by hand. A lot was done by hand. They didn't have home deliveries." We will take an in-depth look into the 1950s housewife in the next video. Thank you for watching, and while you are visiting, please remember to like and subscribe.